Now let's get started working on the book page. So let me go to the books page, right? And let's just go here. Here what we're going to do is we're going to have a navigation bar, and then I think we might add a search functionality here as well. And the third is we need to have the sections, product section, in our case the books, and the fourth section would be the footer section. So I think these four sections should be there in our books page. So let's just get started. So if you go back to our code, and let's go to pages, and if you can see there, like I've added a folder called util. Don't focus it for now, like this is for later on. Currently we are done with the home page, so let me just like remove everything for now. Yeah, let's just close these folders, right? Yeah, so if we go to our books page, let's just go there. You can see that we have this h1 setup, and that is the reason why this books page is coming over here. Now what we want to do is create the UI for the books page. So first things first, I think I want to create a navbar here. Now since I've already made a navbar component, I think it's inside the layout. What we can do is like we can use that component, right? So let me just import that. So import navbar, I think, yeah, navbar from I think we need to go back folder, again inside components. It's inside the layouts folder, and inside the layouts folder it's inside the navbar folder and navbar. Yeah, so this is how we are locating it, right? And let's just call here, say navbar, right? And yeah, this should work. So let's just save that and see how this looks. And like we are being able to import the navbar, but as you can see, you won't be able to see anything unless and until you hover onto these links. And that's because if you go to the home page, you can see that the navbar text colors are basically white, right? Because right now, like white has a good contrast over this like background image. But if you go to our books page, everything is white, so like white is vanishing, kind of, and not kind of, like entirely vanishing. And like only if you hover onto these links you'll be able to see, because once you hover onto this link, you'll get this orange text effect, and you also have this orange text here, so that's why you're seeing that. So what I would want to do is create a like background, give it a background color of black. So if you go back to our books page, right, and you have this navbar here, so let's just go to inside our navbar folder that is inside these layouts, inside components, and let's just click the navbar.js first. Since we want to have like a kind of like a black background on the navbar, and I think navbar container would be a great place to add the class, right? So let's just click on the navbar.styles.css, and in our navbar container I think we can add a background color of #333. Oh, it's dollar, yeah, #333. Let's just save that. Let's see how this looks, and this looks pretty good. Like it's pretty good compared to the like white background. You can see the effect as well, but like one thing you'll have to notice is that when you add this background color here, what will happen is if you go back to our home page, you'll get this background color here as well, which we don't want, right? We want to have the normal navbar that we had earlier here in our home page, and in our like books page we want to have this navbar with the black background. So we are going to solve this issue with the help of prop. Okay, and prop is basically a property that you can pass from a parent component to child component, and you can use that property in the child component, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to use, with the help of prop, we are going to fix this issue, right? So let's get started. So first I want to remove this like background color for now, and in our books page let's just add a prop here. Here you can name any values, you can name anything that you want. I'm going to name this prop dark theme, okay, because we are going to have a black background. So I'm just like naming our prop name to dark theme, and the value should be true, right? Because for this nav bar that is on the books page, we want to have the background color of black. So I need to set the dark theme prop to true. And like you can't add a true like this because it will throw an error. So what you can do is like add a curly brace, and inside that you can add a value of true, and this will work. So basically we are setting the dark theme to true, and this is how you basically create a prop. So let's just save that for now, and let me go to navbar.js. Now I'll show you how you can like use this prop in this child component, right? So the prop value that we have sent here, we can actually get it here with the help of props, right? And here let me just console log and show you how this works. So console.log, and here I'm going to type props dot, and whatever the prop value name that we had, which is dark theme here, so I'm just going to add dark theme, right? And let's just save this, and let's just go here, let me open the inspect, and let's just see what we get. And there you go, we are getting this true value from navbar.js. Like this 5 is the line number. So if you go to our navbar.js file, in our line number 5 we have this console.log. so basically this is what is being logged. So props.darktheme, we are getting the value as true, and which is basically true because we are sending this like prop with a value of true. So basically this is how you can like get the props value in your child component. And to simplify this as well, instead of using these props, what you can do is you can add a curly braces here, and you can directly use the prop name. So if you have a dark theme prop name here, what you can do is inside this you can add a dark theme, right? And then you can use it like wherever you want in your child component. So console.log dark theme, if you save this and if you go back to the folder, and there you go, you're still getting this true value, like, and it is still being able to read the prop, right? So this is one way, this is another way of doing it, and I actually like this way. This is basically the concept of destructuring the object. So instead of using props.darktheme, you can just restructure here with the help of curly braces, and inside that you can add the prop name, and then you can directly use that prop name in the child component. Okay, so we have the dark theme and we have set it to true. Now what we're going to do is we are going to use this dark theme property in order to set the navbar background to either transparent or black. So in our class name here, since navbar container is basically the container of our navbar, and this is where we are going to add the colors, the dark color, I think we can set our logic like in this class name itself. So instead of this like navbar container string, what I'm going to do is I am going to add a curly braces, and inside these curly braces, like we can do any JavaScript that we want. Here what I'm going to do is, now since we already have a dark theme property here, we are going to check if the dark theme value is true. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the ternary operator here. So we are going to add a question mark. So this is basically saying like, hey, is the dark theme true or false? So currently we do have the dark theme because we are passing it from the book page, right? So it's going to say dark theme is true. So if the dark theme is true, what I want to do is I want you to add a class name of background dark, right? So if the dark theme is true, you need to set the class name to background dark. And if the dark name is not set to true, like if the dark name is false, then add a background of transparent. So basically we're saying if the dark theme is true, then set the class name to background dark, else set the class name to background transparent. I want kind of like two classes in this section. One is either the background dark or background transparent for the background colors, and the main navbar container, right? Because if you don't have the navbar container, then you won't be able to like add some paddings on top and bottom, and like there are much styles that you're going to lose. So we're also going to add the navbar container, and for that let's just use I used to choose the string concatenation. So let's just add a plus, and then let's give it a space, and then say navbar container, right? Yeah, so navbar container. And the reason why I'm giving this space is because, like, remember, like when you add a class, when you add like two classes or more than two classes in the same React HTML element, you need to like separate the two classes with a space, and that is what I'm doing here. So basically what will happen is that if the dark theme like prop is there, this element's like class name would be background dark along with the navbar container. And if the dark theme is set to false, the class name should be background transparent along with the navbar container. Okay, so this is basically like what this code is doing. And if you save this file, currently you won't see any effect, I think. Yeah, because those classes are not styled. So let's just style the background dark and background transparent. So let me go over here at the bottom and then say background dark, and let's just set the background color here to #333, and another class name should be, okay, I just made a mistake here. Yeah, that should do the trick. And another one would be background transparent. Yeah, and let's just set the background color here to transparent, right? Transparent meaning like there won't be any colors, so because we don't want any colors on the home page, right? Because we don't want any colors for the nav bar on the home page, so that's why I'm setting the background color to transparent. But for the background dark, I'm setting the background color to 333, which will be a little bit lighter than the original black. So let's just go back to our nav bar and let's see if this works. And there you go, guys. Okay, so we are getting the black color here, but unfortunately I don't think we are being able to add the navbar container class. So let's just inspect this file and see. Yeah, we have the background dark class, but we are not being able to like bring the or concatenate the navbar container. That's why like you are not being able to see the paddings. But let's just check in our home page first if our logic works. And there you go, guys, our logic is working in our home page. And I think the navbar container is being added in this class. So in our home page, like the background is transparent and the navbar container is there, but in our books page, I think only the background dark is there. And I think I know the reason why this is being happening. And I think the reason is because we need to set this navbar container here as well, right? So this basically means if there is a dark theme, add a background dark along with navbar container, else add a background transparent along with navbar container. So if you save this up, there you go, guys, we have the navbar container class here as well. You can also check this out. There you go, you have the navbar container along with background dark. And yeah, by looking at this code, like this might not be a very efficient way to write code. Like one efficient way of rewriting this code would be to use the template string. We can use this like tick. I think I just call it tick, but I don't know, like it's not a colon, it's not a double quote, like it's just tick. Here basically whatever you write is basically like will be rendered as a string. Along with the string, like you can add a dynamic value as well, and in order to add a dynamic value you have to add a $sign, and you have to create those opening and curly braces, and inside this whatever value that you add, this value will be dynamic, meaning that it can come from a variable. Okay, so this is basically a template string, and I can use this in order to like rewrite this code here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to like rewrite it again. So I'm going to say, so the first like class name that we want to have here would be the navbar container, right? And you can add a space, and then I think we can use our logic inside here. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the same logic. So I'm going to say dark theme. If there is a dark theme, then like now you can use like a single quote here, and I'm going to add a class name of background dark, else I'm going to add a class name of background transparent. Okay, so I think this is much cleaner than the previous code that we had. We used like the ES5 concatenation strings, but here we are using the ES6 template strings. As a result, what will happen is like the navbar container will obviously be there as a class name, and either one of these two will be there as a class name, right? Depending on the dark theme. So if you save this, I think you will able to see, yeah, the effect here. And then if you go to localhost 3000, our home page, you'll be able to see like there is no black background in this navbar as well. Okay, so this is how you can use a prop in order to create like this dynamic effects using the same component. Okay, since we are already in the showcase, let's just add a prop, like, you know, just to like keep up with the consistency. Let's just add a dark theme and set that to false. Yeah, like there won't be any like changes in terms of the UI because it's the same thing, but in terms of code, like we are sending the dark theme here as well. And now the another thing that I want to add below the navbar would be a search field. And since I've already created a search field here, like we are going to import the same search field. Okay, so here let's just go to, now we're in the showcase section, so let's just remove this. I think we can remove the navbar now, also the navbar styles.css, and all that we're left with is the books page. Okay, so let's just go down and add a div tag here. Let's just add a class name here, and let's set the class name to search field container, search, or like search container, right? And inside this we are going to like add the search field. So I think the component we had created the component for the search field, was it the forms? Yeah, I think it's inside the search input form. So let me create import search input form from dot slash. We're just locating this file where it exists. So we're just going 2 folders back, and inside components, inside forms, inside search input form, and then search input form file. Okay, yeah, so we are importing the component, and let's just add it here. So search input form, and let's just save this for now and see if this works or not. Yeah, I think we're getting the search input field, so it's going a little bit up, and the reason why is because we have set the navbar to position absolute. I think because of this right here, remember that we were facing the issue of like centering and all those stuffs, and I think in that case we have added a navbar, we have given the navbar a position absolute, and because of that we are facing some issues here. So let's just fix this up, right? So what we can do is like just now, like we have created that logic, and because of that logic, like we are being able to add this black background in our navbar. So like, why don't we also use the same logic in order to create give it a position of relative instead of absolute? So let's just go to our navbar again. I keep closing the navbar, but like it keeps coming up. And so let's just go over here now. Since we already have the dark theme, right, and we are adding a background dark class, let's just also add a relative class here. And in our navbar.styles.css, let's create that class relative, and let's add a position of relative. And let me also add an important here so that it like overrides every other position property there is. So let's just save this, and there you go, guys. Now it's not like going up, it's just the navbar is now inside the flow, it's not out of the flow, and because of that we are able to see the search bar here instead of like overlapping with the navbar. Okay, so we have got our input field. One thing I don't like is this drop shadow over here. It's way too dark for a white background. So what I'm going to do is, let's just close the navbar for now. Now I think like we don't need the navbar. Let's go to forms, search, because like that is where the search input form is. Let's just open up both the styles and the JSX. And in our search input form container, instead of like 111, let's just add a ccc. Okay, I think C would do the trick. So we have basically changed the box shadow to a little bit of like light gray, so it looks much better than the previous one. But again, if you go back to our home page, you can see that this background like box shadow is not looking good here. Like this was fine with our, like this was already fine with the previous box shadow. So here also we need to have like the box shadow of 111 value for the home page, and we need to have like a box shadow of ccc value for the books page, right? So again, since we have already done this logic, we can do it with the help of prop, right? So what we can do is we can set a dark theme, right? So dark theme, remember this is a property that is going to come from a parent component, and you can actually get that with the help of props, but I have destructured it so we can like use the property name and like cut off the props from there, and just cut off the props we can just use the value in order to work with it. So search input form container, I think this is where our drop like box shadow is there. So instead of this, what I'm going to do is add some logic over here. We're going to use some template strings, so let's just add that. And first and foremost, the main styling should be there. So the main styling would be the search input form container, right? And so search input form container, so this should always be there. And by checking this dark theme value, we can add either a light box shadow or a dark box shadow. So let's check this up. So in order to use the JavaScript, we have to add a $sign, because we are inside the template string, and along with the $sign we have to give the opening and closing curly braces, and inside this we can use the JavaScript. So we are going to check if the dark theme exists or not, and if it exists, we are going to add a dark box shadow class. And if it does not exist, like if the dark theme does not exist, then we are going to give a light box shadow, yeah, light box shadow class. Okay, currently we are not passing any like property in the search input form from our parent component. So let's just go to our books page where we have this search input form, And now here let's just set the dark theme, and let's just add a value of false. Okay, because we don't want the dark theme here because in our books page, so we are just adding a value of false. Save this up, and you are getting this like light background, but I think it's not because of the class. I think, yeah, in general we have just added a CCC here. Like if you add a 111, it's still going to give me black. There you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this box shadow, or like copy this box shadow, right, and remove this from the search input form container. If you save this, and you won't get any box shadows, neither here nor on the home page. So we are going to style these classes, so dark box shadow and light box shadow. So let me go on the bottom and say dark box shadow, and here we are going to add a box shadow of 4 pixels, 4 pixels, 15 pixels, and then 111 for the dark box shadow. And for the light box shadow, so light box shadow, right, we are going to add the same property. Instead of this 111, I'm just going to add a CCC value to give a little bit of gray or a light gray. And if you save this, now you'll see a little bit of light gray over here, and the reason why is because we have passed a dark theme of false here. Now let's go to a home page, and I think it's inside the showcase section. So inside our showcase section, this we have the search input form, and we are going to set the dark theme here to true. So let's just set it to true, and let's just save that, and let's just go. Remember that there is no change taking place here, even if we add the even if it added the prop to true. And the reason is why, because like we just added the props true on the search input form that is inside the showcase section and not on the books page section. So let's just go to showcase section, and there you go guys. Instead of that like the white drop shadow, you have this dark drop shadow over here. We used the same logic twice in order to change the navbar color, and also in order to change the box shadow of the search fields, right? So basically this is how you can use a prop in order to change the the stylings inside the same container. Okay, so let's just go to our books page for now, books page. And now one thing I would want to do is I would want to shorten or reduce the width of this search bar, because right now it's like way big. It's coming like it's taking the entire screen. So let's just go to our code. Let me remove the showcase section, this section as well for now. So we have the search input form. Let me just remove that. So yeah, we have the search container here. So we need to style the search container in order to shrink the width. Okay, so for that we need to add a css. We need to create the css file first, because I think we haven't created a css file for the books page. Let's just create the css file for the book page. So book page dot styles, or it should be books page. Let's just keep up with the consistency. Styles.css, and let's just import it here. So import dot slash books page dot styles dot css. Okay, that's looking good. Let's just save that, and now let's style the search container. So search container, and don't forget to add the dot here. Okay, because we are styling the classes. So now what I want to do is I want to set the width of the style container to 40%, and let's just see how this looks. And there you go, we have kind of like shrink the width. Now what I want to do here is I want to bring this input towards the center, and for that let's just add a margin of auto, and there you go, we have centered this input field. Let me also add a little bit of padding, like from the top. So padding top of 5% maybe, I don't know. Okay, so 5% is like I think like this is looking pretty good. Okay, and then we can have like the components, like the cards here. I also want to have a text here, a little bit of a kind of like an h2 text. So let's just add an h2 here. Find the books that you want. Find the books that you want, something like this. Okay, yeah, so let's just style this up. So what I'm going to do is go to bookspage.styles.css, and I'm going to style the h2 tag with respect to our search container. So search container, since like the h2 tag is inside the search container, and then we can say h2, and inside this let's just text align to center for now. Right, let's just save that, and the text is kind of centered. Let me also add a little bit of padding on the bottom. So padding bottom to 10 pixels, or like 1 rem. And let's just change this books to orange text. And first let me just create a capital B here, and here let's add a span tag. SPAN span tag. Inside this, let's add this books here, and let's add a class name of text primary, right? Because we have created the global class text primary. I hope you guys remember. And there you go, we have the books set to orange. So I think like that is it for the search field and the navbar and the text that we want to add. Now what I want to do is I want to like move on to the main section, which is like listing the products here. For the product card, we are going to use the same card that we have used here. So let me go back to our code. So either we can have the product section directly here, or we can create a component. And so I think like let's go with the component one, because like that would be a much better way to do it. So let me create a product listing, right? And I think product listing is already there in our layouts. Yeah, so product listing, what we can do is we can add an all here. So product listing all, meaning we are going to show all the products. Close the tag here. So let's create a product listing all folder in the layouts as well. So in our layouts, let's create a new folder that says product listing all. And don't get confused with the product listing and product listing all. Product listing is the like product listing section that is in our home page, and product listing all is that listing section that is in our book page. Okay, and so inside this I'm going to create a new JavaScript file, new component, which will be product listing all.js, right? And I also want to have a styling of product listing all.styles.css, something like this. Okay, so let me create a simple component for now. Okay, so we have created our basic like component template, and inside this I've just added an h1 of product listing all just to check, and like I'm going to remove it later on. Let's also like map this css file. So I'm gonna say import and then dot slash, since we are in the same folder, product listing all. Okay, product listing all dot styles dot css. Okay, let's just save that, and now let's bring the product listing all to our books page. And we have already used it here, so all we need to do is just import the component. So I'm going to import product listing all. Yeah, and it's going to automatically map the file if you are in a VS Code, or else you can just like manually map it if you want. Let's just save this, and like, yeah, the component is working because we are getting this text. Now let's work on this section. The first thing that I want to have is a container component inside of it. So I'm going to say div with a class name of container, right? If we want to add the paddings on the left and right, and this container card class, we already have it, that like kind of shrinks the width and like centers the container itself. Okay, so now I think we need to display the cards here, right? And like in the books page, the displaying the card is going to be a little bit different than compared to the home page, because in our home page, if you look at this section, we have just displayed these 4 of these cards that's in a row, and I think we have used as flexbox in order to display these cards, like, which pretty much works like if you're just using, like if you're just doing it with one row, and I think there's no problem to that. But if you have multiple rows, because we in this section we are going to have like multiple rows, okay, so in order to do that, like using flexbox is doable, but it's not an efficient way of doing it. So we can use CSS grids in order to like create a 3 by 3 grid. I think it's like 3 by 4 rows and 4 columns. You know, we can create that and then we can display the card. So let's just go with that. So inside of container, let's create a grid container. So like, let's say div with the class name of grid container, right? And let's just add a div here. Inside this grid container, let me create a div, right? And let's just add a class name of grid item. And inside this grid item, what you can do is we can add the same card component that we had created. So let's just import that card component for now. So import, I think it's inside the cards, yeah, product listing card. So import product listing card from cards, product listing card, and product listing card.js. So we basically we're importing like this file here, and let's just add it here for now. So product listing card, and let's see how this looks. Okay, we are getting the first card over here. Now remember, we haven't added the grid styling as well, right, for now. And if you keep on adding this grid item, let's just add it here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Let's just create 9 like grid items for now, and let's see how this looks at first. So we have this 9 cards over here that's just like on top of each other, but we don't want that. So let's just create the styles for the grids. So let's just so first let's target this grid container in our product listing styles. So I'm gonna target the grid grid container, and inside this grid container I'm going to add a display property of grid, and another property that I want to add is grid template columns. Okay, and grid template columns, what it does is it basically sets the columns of the grids. So what we are going to add is we're going to say auto 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 auto. So 4 autos here, like this basically means that we are adding 4 grid template columns. Content inside these columns are going to like take up the entire space. And if you save this, and there you go guys, we have the 4 columns right over here. And basically that's how you can, you know, use grid in order to create the row combination of rows and columns, and it's much better efficient way than using flexbox. So I think like although we have created this columns, I think there is a little bit of slight issue with the alignment. So let's see. Yeah, so grid container is taking that entire, I think, 80%. Okay, I think the grid items are also taking up the entire space, right? But you can see here that our product listing card is just taking, like, it's not being centered, it's not centered, and that is the reason why you are seeing like a lot of space over here and not that much space over here. So let's just like center this product card inside our grid item. So now, like, let's just center this product listing card inside the grid item. Now so now in order to center this, you can use flexbox here. So let's just target the grid item, grid item, yeah, and here, like, we just need to center this product listing card, which is basically the child element of this grid item. So we can use flexbox in order to do that. So we can say display flex here, and then we can set the justify content property to center, right? And if you go back, and there you go, guys, we have the now the like the cards are centered. This space and this space are looking exactly same. Okay, so yeah, this is what I wanted. And another thing is that you can see that there are no gaps between these two rows, and also this row as well. So what I can do is I can create a grid gap here. So grid gap, and let's just add 1 rem of gap here. So let's just check if this works. So yeah, we are getting that gap, but 1 rem is, I think, too small. So let's just create 2 rem in terms of gap. And how about 5 rem? Yeah, I think 5 rem is much better. So now we have added the grid gaps as well. So grid gap is basically the gaps between each grid block. Okay, so if you inspect this now, like, you can see there is a gap between all the grid items. Okay, and whatever gap that we have given, that is going to be the gap, like, horizontally as well as vertically. So that's what the grid gap property does. So, and I also want a little bit of padding on the top. You can't use grid gap over here, you generally have to use padding, and we can do that inside the, I think, yeah, we can do it here. Like, in the main container, we can add a class name of product listing all container, right? Let's just save this, and let's target that class over here by saying product listing all container, and inside this, let's just add a padding top of 5 rem. Save that, and let's see how this looks. And I think it's looking much better now. Instead of 5 rem, I want 8 rem. So let's see. Now this is much better. So there you go, guys. We have this grid set up. If you want to display elements in both rows and columns, I think grid is the best option to go. But like, if you're just displaying items in rows, then I think you can use flexbox there. Okay, and the final thing that I want to do here is I would want to add a footer again. So for the footer, like, we have already created the footer in our home section, so I'm just going to add the same footer on the bottom here as well. So let's go to the books page, and let's import the footer that we had already built. So import footer from dot slash components. I think it's inside the foot layouts, and inside the layouts we have a footer, and inside the footer we have the footer file. So, and let's just use it here. So footer component, and if you save this, you'll get the footer here. There you go. But since it doesn't have much space with our, like, product listing container, what I'm going to do is, in our product listing all.styles.css, I'm also going to add a padding bottom of 5 rem probably. Let's just see how this looks. And like I think it is okay, it is fine. Okay guys, so I think in a short span of time we also have like set up the UI for our books. Like although like we are displaying the same books again and again, we are going to change the dynamic variable. And like that is where I think that is where like this util folder will like come to play, but not for now because currently we are just focusing on the UI. And in like speaking of the UI, I think I'm very satisfied with the books page, and like we are going to go with this UI here. So now we have the home page set up, we have the books page set up as well, right? The only thing I think that we would want now is to have the UI for the product detailed page,